let's talk about basically tips and tricks how to do this. So getting to this part is basically getting to finishing 5C, right? So I assume that you know the basics of simulation by the time you get to this point. Now let's start with the setup first. As you can see, the first setup that I have right now is 20, but we'll get to 25. The max rewards for this game mode is getting enough difficulty challenges basically that we're gonna self-impose to us. We need to get like 25 points, and in order to get that 25 points we have to select different challenges. I would say there's about 20 points that is pretty much like everybody can easily take, and then from there, in order to push to 25, it's gonna vary from account to account. So let's start off with the pretty much the most basic thing, the attack increase for the enemy. This is basically up to how much tolerance you do have. I kind of have it set up at 2 here because again, because of there's possible more than 5 that we can get from the other things that I'm gonna talk about. So this one, just having more attack is basically gonna make it similar to hard mode campaign pushing, where basically a lot of the mobs like one-shot you. But I go with +2 right now just because I'll talk more about the other things too that you could end up choosing. So the defense, basically this defense is pretty much like useless stat. We have like really high attack percentage scaling, and with how the formulas work, basically defense is negligible. Now here's the HP part, and this is where we get some mixed kind of responses from different people. Some people would have done easier if they didn't have any HP. Some probably are fine just having a little bit of HP. For low level sync, because I assume that typically people who would look at this guide are probably lower sync, like I would say like we consider lower sync to be around 200 to 250. That's where people kind of are on the lower levels. Maybe not having HP increase is better for them. Now, it's gonna be up to you how much you can tolerate. Now here's the memory loss, which is the stats when you get bond levels, and then this is the no recycling. These are pretty much like free. The higher your level is, the less these stats mean, and you can get away with these. The most that you get is about between like 2,000 3,000 attack more, and at lower levels that does mean a lot, but at higher levels it kind of means less. Most people would select these two. I'll talk about the other thing. I'm gonna skip this one, but I'll come back to this aggressive tactics. Rush hour, this is like easy +4. The amount of time that you need is reduced by 30%, and for the most part, since you probably have the attack buffs also, it's either kill them or be killed, so you have not a lot of time. But maybe if you have like high survivability, like for example if you're using the bunnies, then maybe you can get away with not using this. But for the most part, almost everyone, this is like an easy +4 for them. Now here's the thing though, there's this part where it restricts what kind of units you use, or it restricts the cooldown, so it makes all the burst 1 units of Nikke's 40 seconds, or you cannot use SMG. Now for most people that are using litter, then this is almost like they're not gonna touch it. So there's gonna be a strategy that I will say later where this one will end up probably being helpful for you. And then there's this one also, which is the burst 2 Nikke's. I'm pretty sure they want to not using Blanc. Most people are probably gonna be avoiding this, taking this as well. And then the second one is it's gonna make all burst 2s at 40 seconds. We're probably not gonna select any of these, but I could imagine that if you're using Tia Naga, then maybe you could get away with this. That's an easy +2 right there. And then this one is a super easy. It'll make all raptures into iron code, so this one is an easy +1. The +4 is a little bit difficult because you would need a rupture. The boss will end up being only damageable by wind type, which is pretty much like the Black Shadow Scarlet right now. That is pretty much the main decent one. Based on the later strategy that I will talk about, we probably don't want this. This one is fine though, switching into making them all iron code. And then this one is just getting bombs. +3 is they get shield. We'll take the one where they don't get shield based on their weakness. and this one is a healer. This one is fine also to take. Now there's a +3 for whale, and I'll talk about how to kind of deal with the whale if you do choose it, but you can choose the whale if you want to. So if you do choose the whale, you can see that you're 23 now, and then I could see some people just taking a little bit more HP, and that will push to 25. Now for some people, then maybe if you don't take any of these, then you can choose to do either the aggressive tactics, or at the bottom there is this one, which is the relevant personnel. The relevant personnel puts like a stage right before the boss stage where there's like a bunch of elites. Meanwhile, this one, the aggressive tactics, it is slightly gonna make some of the stages a little bit more difficult on before the boss, but also, you know, it's just more like you're forced to fight. Now if I have to choose between the two, relevant personnel is a lot easier because it will allow you to skip some stages on the simulation room. However, there are some people that did find aggressive tactics to be a lot easier than this one because for some reason they had harder time dealing with this stage right before the boss. That one is going to be up to you. In any case though, how I see it is the easiest is to find like the base like 20 points, and then now it's up to you how you want to handle getting more, right? Like if, for example, you could make the mobs like with more attack and then just more HP, and maybe you could get away with that. And some people maybe find it easier to deal with the mother whale, and maybe you could get away with that. So let me talk about when mother whale also exists in this. So the thing is, mother whale show up once for a lot of people only, but she does show up like roughly twice. After the first 20 to 25 seconds, she will eventually show up for it. So yeah, she's showing up right there. And then after this first time that she shows up, there's about like another minute. So after she's gone, like plus or minus around within a minute, then she will show up again. But since the normal stages are pretty short, like it's like less than 1 minute or plus or minus if you have the timer reduction also, so she's just really gonna show up once. So that way, that's why I think mother whale is okay to use. Another thing is you can cover her wind. Now obviously you got to make sure that they still have cover and they're still alive, but you can cover that charge if you cannot somehow deal the cancel circles. So ideally, when you are bursting, you burst at the beginning, and then by the second time the burst is available, mother whale appears, and then usually, hopefully you have enough DPS to kind of deal with it. But some people just, even with full burst, probably don't have enough DPS on that one, and then in that situation, that's when you do the covering instead, and then just have her destroy your cover. The cover doesn't carry over between the different fights, only your HP carries over to the next fight, so it's fine to lose your cover. Now here's the situation. When you first go into the simulation, obviously you can farm your buffs. There's the legacy buff. Some people probably ignored this kind of mechanic way back then, but if you start a simulation, you can just fast clear it. You can actually farm buffs in order to clear like the higher stages. And so you can do, what you can do is farm 2A, which is probably my recommended one. Find a buff shape that you want to aim for. And so in my situation, I have a few legacy buffs that I farmed already that is shaped triangle. What I'm looking for is I'm gonna look for triangle also. So this one has survival, this one's diamond, so I'm just gonna pick that. And you can just quick battle because it's 2A, it's a lot easier. And then yeah, I can pick that. That's a triangle. There's unknown rewards or strategic buff. Go unknown and maybe get lucky. So your priority, if you have to choose which kind of buffs you would go, is I would go for attack buffs. That's the one that you would want. Now here's another thing that you kind of want to pay attention to. So now I'm gonna select this triangle buff, select this. one thing that you have to pay attention to also is who these buffs are good for. So as you can see here, this one is only good applicable for Tetra, and that attack when HP falls below 20%. This one I didn't really get anything that is good for me, because this one is like when your HP falls below 20%. That's not really gonna trigger. I'll probably be dead likely if I do that on the actual simulation room. And these ones are defense, and it's like whatever. I'm just gonna select whatever in this case, and hopefully I get another buff that would actually be useful. So here we got another triangle. Let's see which ones are good. Oh, this one is good. At the start of the battle, increase attack by 5%. So I would, and then this is applicable for attacker. This one is actually really good, so I'm gonna take that one. Oh, actually, wait, never mind. I already have a circle buff that is for attacker, and it's SSR. And then hopefully right before the boss part here, you can click spec up, and there's different types of spec ups you can get. One is convert everything to SSR. Another is convert them to like a specific shape. So this, since I've been farming like triangle shapes, or try to at least farm triangle shapes, this is nice that I can get this triangle shape here. And then I selected that, so everything now is triangle shape for mine, and I will be able to take home one of them. So here's the thing, right? Remember that I had a circle buff earlier? So once I finish that boss, you can just like close this. You don't really need, you're not going to be able to carry epic buffs, and click end simulation. And then now you can take home anything. So here's the thing, right? Remember that I had this circle buff that was like this circle buff that I had. So it will show what kind of buffs you have right now. And I have 4 triangles and 1 circle. And see, the thing is, like, everything that the buffs that we've picked before was kind of useless, because now I actually want to keep a triangle buff that is for this attacker, right? And that way, so right now it will replace the circle buff that is on my legacy right now, and I'll replace it with a triangle. That way now everything is triangle on my side. So now I have 5 triangles now, and basically I want to continue this and get up to all triangles. And when you have all of the same shape, the effects are much bigger. With all this triangle, I have 1 triangle right now, it's only level 2. Like level 2 of SSR, which is 5.28%. But then if I have like all triangles on my side, I would get like a level 5 of this SSR, and I would get about 9.2%. So yeah, epic buffs cannot be saved, so typically you just want to keep doing the simulation, spam 2A, and a lot of, okay, I guess I get a lot of that, quick battle, and just keep farming for the ideal ones. Oh, so this one is like increased crit rate and for pilgrims, which is really nice because I have like a lot of pilgrims that I use. So that's kind of like the general basics of trying to figure out like what kind of buffs you're going for. At the end of the day, this one is a good one where it doesn't even have any particular one. Basically, this one will apply to every unit that you have. There's no condition on this top right of the box, so that means that it will apply to everybody. It's just a rinse and repeat until you get 8 buffs that are same shape also. Ideally SSR, but if you don't get SSR, then that's okay too. And if it's not, like, it's also fine if it's not all the same shape. And the reason for that is because at the end, when this spec up, there are some that changes it into all the same shape. So there's this one where all buffs are changed to SSR, and then there's another one where all buffs are converted into same shape. And then that will affect, like, at the end of the overclock simulation room, there's gonna be a spec up opportunity as well on that one, assuming that you didn't need the heals. Hopefully you didn't need the heals, but you can use that to also just like hope that you got either the correct like fixing it into SSR or fixing it into the same shapes. Those are the ones that you would end up like hoping for. So that's the buff basics. So now here's the thing, right? Because we didn't pick aggressive tactics, there are going to be some situations where there's going to be unknown rewards that pop up, and this is basically a free skip. That's what it is. So having unknown tactics is really nice because it's basically a free skip for us. And then, oh, another unknown reward, so that's basically another one. And then it's even better because it could get us random buff, which is really nice. Enhance all existing buffs to SSR but take 50% damage. See, this one is actually gonna be an issue for lower levels, and that is some risk. You could take this and then take the healing afterwards. So you can take the healing afterwards or take the spec up. So there is, and then get that heal. So it does restore some. It put us back to like 80%. But yeah, once you get to the boss part, I would say there are many strategies that you guys could actually use, and a lot of people probably don't even know that. Number one is finding out the boss that you are fighting with. So right now there is this license that we ended up like fighting right now, and there is another boss which is called heavy metal that we can actually just use, and that boss has 6 parts, and rocket launchers are actually good at that. So another thing is, let's say that you did set up like, oh, I got the wrong team in, or okay, this team is just not working out. You can just quit. Quitting, it will show that there's damage here, but it will actually not apply. It will return them to their previous state right before they enter. So you can just like switch your team up, and yeah, maybe like you're alright, that's not working out, so I'm gonna switch my team again to a different team that I would prefer. Okay, I was like, okay, this team wasn't working out, so I'm gonna switch with a different team. And then, so if you find out that like your team somehow is just not working out, and this then you can start quitting. Now here's another thing, you can also set it up, if you finish the battle, you can set it up so that you can actually just dump different teams in it. So if one team is not enough, you can actually make another team. Let's say that that team got registered, I can use a completely another team, and I will use that to actually deal with this boss also. And the damage on the boss carries over. However much damage we did on the boss in one team, that HP is gonna carry over to the next teams also. So you can just keep dumping as many teams as you can in order to deal with the boss. You don't have to defeat the boss with just one team. As I mentioned before, heavy metal is a good boss because it has like 6 parts on it. This license has 4 parts on it, and rocket launchers are really good against these simulation room bosses. And one thing to note is these bosses have like unlimited HP parts, or like really high. I think they're just like extremely high, because I see some damage on these. So they're just like extremely high, that is basically just use rocket launcher, and they're actually like meta for this mode if you guys are struggling. So Laplace, A2 are really good at it, and Dorothy is also good at it because she buffs parts damage. So that's why I was recommending to look for, maybe, okay, this boss license was not really working out, you could try to switch in heavy metal is better instead. And you can do like some things like, yeah, you could try to set up multiple teams, right? You could have one team that is like your Dorothy and like Summer Niece, similar to like Solar Raid or Union Raid. You could try to set up that, and then, you know, have one that's shotgun, and then maybe another one for Snow White. Or sometimes like Snow White struggle, and then you could do that one and done shot Snow White with like Winter Anne, and just call it and do her shot and then call it a day. And then you can swap with another team for, you have like your Red Hood team, and then you can have the Scarlet or Alice, different types of teams that you could end up using. In general, I would say like the campaign team do generally work really well, and I would recommend having just to push one. You use one team to push the rest of the stages, and then like have another team that will deal with the rest of the boss HP if you cannot somehow just kill it with just one team. So right now, Scarlet Black Shadow is really good against this boss in particular because the bosses are wind weak. I could imagine that this entire thing is going to be different when the reset happens. Like the buffs and debuffs are gonna change when the reset happens, and so these effective buffs and debuffs are gonna be different. So that's why I give you guys like more a situational how to do this mode efficiently, farming buffs, dumping teams, and doing quits, and then rocket launcher meta. But yeah, other than that, that's pretty much kind of like the other tips, quick tips that you guys could use on overcoming this. And if you guys are not sure, then you guys are feel free to just ask in the comments, or just like come over the stream and just ask also in there. But yeah, that's about it. I'll see you guys next time.